Today, we're diving into a topic that might be a bit controversial, but is something many of us have wondered about: the real, shocking truth behind tithing. You've probably heard a lot about the importance of giving 10% of your income, but have you ever wondered why this number, where it started, or what it truly means for us today? Before we uncover the secrets and surprising truths about tithing, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our community. Your support really means a lot to us and helps us bring more eye-opening content to you every week. So, let's jump in. What is tithing? Tithing is often misunderstood simply as giving money to the church, but the history is much richer and more complex. In ancient Israel, tithing was seen as a form of gratitude and dedication to God, acknowledging that all possessions ultimately came from Him. The origin story goes back to Abraham, who gave 1/10 of his spoils to the high priest Melchizedek as an offering after a victorious battle, Genesis 14 verse 20. This act wasn't mandated. Rather, it was a voluntary gesture of thanksgiving. Later, under the law of Moses, tithing became a structured part of the Israelites' lives, turning into a duty for all. Each year, the Israelites were expected to give 10% of their produce, livestock, and wealth to support the Levites, who didn't have their own land or sources of income, and also to help the poor, widows, and orphans in their community, Deuteronomy 14 verse 28 to 29. This wasn't only a religious duty, it was also a social and economic practice designed to create a support network within the community. People weren't just giving out of obligation, they were giving to sustain their entire community and build a society that cared for its members. The true purpose behind tithing, what most don't realize. A surprising aspect of tithing is its original intent. Unlike today, where people may feel pressured to tithe as a financial obligation, tithing in ancient times was designed to cultivate a spirit of generosity and community. It emphasized equality and support for those who needed it most, particularly the Levites, who dedicated their lives to religious duties and thus relied on the community for sustenance. This concept of tithing as a communal responsibility underscored the principle that wealth and resources were to be shared. The goal was not to burden people, but to create an ecosystem of mutual support. Many people misunderstand tithing as just a financial transaction, but in its early form, it was a profound act of generosity and compassion aimed at creating a balanced and supportive society. In a time when social welfare programs didn't exist, tithing served as a safety net. By giving, each Israelite took responsibility for the well-being of the whole community. Today, viewing tithing through this lens may inspire a deeper understanding of generosity as something that goes beyond fulfilling a rule. It's about actively contributing to a more supportive and caring world. Does tithing still apply to modern-day Christians? One of the biggest questions Christians face today is whether tithing remains a requirement. In the New Testament, there's a noticeable shift in perspective. While tithing isn't dismissed, it isn't emphasized the same way it was in the Old Testament. Instead, Jesus and his disciples speak more about the importance of a generous heart. Take Matthew 23 verse 23, where Jesus rebukes the Pharisees for tithing meticulously while neglecting justice, mercy, and faithfulness. This implies that while tithing can be a good practice, it shouldn't overshadow other critical aspects of living a faith-driven life. In other words, God values a balance of actions and virtues, not just adherence to financial obligations. The Apostle Paul further highlights this in 2 Corinthians 9-7, where he says, "Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." This indicates a shift from the rigid tithe to a more flexible, heartfelt approach to giving. For Paul and other early Christians, Generosity was meant to be an authentic reflection of one's relationship with God, rather than a fixed rule. This approach can be liberating, allowing believers to consider how they give in ways that resonate with their faith. The financial misconception about tithing. One truth that often goes unspoken is that tithing was never intended to create a financial strain on believers. Today, however, many people feel pressured to tithe even when they're struggling financially, fearing they'll be in disobedience to God if they don't give a full 10%. Yet both the Old and New Testaments suggest that God's focus is more on the heart than on specific amounts. Under the Mosaic Law, Israelites gave from the abundance they had, often produce, livestock, or goods rather than strict currency. In the agricultural society of ancient Israel, giving a tenth was more achievable and realistic, as people directly produced what they were giving. Modern society, by contrast, operates largely on currency, which can complicate the concept of tithing. People living paycheck to paycheck, for example, may not have the flexibility to give 10% without struggling to cover essentials. Understanding that tithing was originally a community-centered practice can relieve the guilt or anxiety that many feel today. It was designed to be a system of support and giving back, not a cause of financial hardship. Giving, then, becomes less about adhering to a strict rule and more about contributing according to one's ability and willingness. How churches interpret and teach tithing. Today, the interpretation of tithing has evolved over centuries, and modern churches vary widely in their approach. Some churches teach tithing as a non-negotiable aspect of Christian faith, linking it to obedience, while others encourage it as a personal choice, allowing members to decide the extent of their giving. This variation can be confusing, especially for new believers or those returning to faith. In some congregations, pastors teach the 10% rule as a way to ensure the church has consistent funding. However, this has led to some criticism. In cases where the message becomes a source of pressure rather than inspiration, people can feel alienated. A growing movement among pastors advocates for a shift away from strict percentages, instead encouraging members to give in ways that align with their resources and circumstances. This approach promotes generosity as a guiding principle, with less emphasis on fixed amounts and more focus on the individual's heart and willingness to contribute. When giving is seen as an act of joy and support rather than a strict rule, people often feel more inspired to give and feel a stronger sense of connection to their church and faith community. The spiritual side of tithing. More than just money beyond financial aspects, tithing has a profound spiritual significance. Many believers view tithing as an act of faith, symbolizing their trust in God's provision. For those who choose to tithe, especially when finances are tight, the act itself can be a form of surrender, a statement that they believe God will meet their needs even when they give a portion of what they have. This belief reinforces the idea of abundance rather than scarcity, teaching that generosity stems from gratitude. Tithing also serves as a reminder of all the blessings one has received, beyond just financial gains. Some people tithe not because they feel obligated, but because they want to express their thankfulness. Giving back becomes an expression of worship, gratitude, and love, rather than simply following a rule. This approach aligns well with the New Testament's focus on giving from the heart, reinforcing that generosity is about the quality of the gift and the heart behind it. Many believers find that tithing deepens their faith, teaching them to let go of financial anxiety and embrace a mindset of trust and gratitude. In this way, tithing becomes a spiritual discipline that shapes a person's relationship with money, reinforcing values of thankfulness, trust, and surrender. Alternative ways to practice tithing in modern times. As society evolves, so do the methods of giving back. Today, people are finding creative ways to practice the principles of tithing without relying solely on financial contributions. Many who struggle to give a strict 10% of their income choose to contribute in other ways that fulfill the spirit of generosity. One approach is to offer time and talents. Volunteering at the church or participating in community projects can be powerful ways to give back. Others use their professional skills to support their church or community. For instance, an accountant may help with church finances, or a doctor may offer free clinics. The New Testament's emphasis on generosity opens the door to these alternative forms of tithing. It shows that while financial support is valuable, contributions of time, skills, and energy are equally essential in building a thriving community. For many people, this expanded definition of tithing feels more attainable, sustainable, and aligned with their unique abilities. Breaking the myths surrounding tithing. Over the years, several myths about tithing have created misconceptions, sometimes causing unnecessary guilt, confusion, or even resentment. Here are some of the most common myths and the truths that debunk them. 1. Myth: tithing guarantees wealth. Many people believe that tithing is a sort of investment that will yield financial returns. Some even teach that by giving, one can unlock blessings and wealth. While tithing does come with spiritual rewards, the Bible doesn't promise that tithing will automatically lead to material riches. Tithing is about faith and gratitude, not a formula for financial gain. 2. Myth: not tithing means you're cursed. Some believers are haunted by the fear that not tithing might invite misfortune, drawing from passages like Malachi 3:9-10. However, it's essential to consider the historical context. This directive was aimed at the Israelites under the Old Covenant. The New Testament emphasizes that we are under grace, not bound by fear. God values a willing heart, not giving out of fear or compulsion. 3. Myth: only money counts as tithing. Some feel that only financial gifts count as tithing, but the Bible shows a variety of ways people give. Tithing can be about offering resources, time, skills, or energy to build a stronger community. By viewing tithing as more than just money, people can give in ways that are meaningful and sustainable. Breaking free from these myths allows people to see tithing in a new light, as a practice of generosity rather than obligation. Is tithing right for you? Deciding whether to tithe is a deeply personal choice that often involves careful thought, prayer, and consideration of one's own circumstances. While the traditional 10% tithe has served many as a guideline, it's important to recognize that financial situations vary widely, and what might be feasible for one person could be a burden for another. For many, choosing to give what they can, when they can, brings peace and fulfillment. If tithing is seen as a gift to God, then giving with a joyful heart is what matters most. Instead of feeling pressured to meet a percentage, some people find freedom in giving according to their own ability, allowing for flexibility and joy in their generosity. For those who struggle financially, giving even a small amount or contributing in non-monetary ways can still fulfill the principle of tithing. The essence of tithing is in the heart, not the amount. Closing and call to action. So, there you have it, the shocking, often untold truth about tithing. It's more than just numbers. It's about giving from the heart and supporting others in ways that truly make a difference. Whether or not you decide to tithe, remember that generosity is a personal journey, and how you give matters just as much as what you give. If you found this discussion helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.